All right. Hello, hello. Welcome to everyone who is on the stream right now. Make sure I've got my last couple of things going here. Hopefully you all can hear me. And all of my tech has worked. All right. This is exciting. This is the first time I've done something like this. So, first of all, welcome to everyone who has showed up live for this. And if you're not live, if you're catching the replay of this, welcome anyway. I'm super glad that you're here and excited to see what comes of this. And I hope very much that you all come away from this brief introduction to the IFO method with some new ideas about what you can do with your own data. So I wanted to ask a question, first of all. Do you always know where to find your data? Like if you want to go find a picture or a document or an email that you sent, whatever it is, do you always know exactly where to go to find that? Because I don't. And I would like to say that I do, but honestly, it's a mess sometimes. And a lot of us are in that boat. I have no doubt. I've talked to tons of people and they always say, oh my goodness, I have too many emails. I don't know where anything is on my computer. It's a mess. I can never find it. I know it's there. It's on one of these hard drives that I bought sometime in the last 10 years, but I can never find it. And it's discouraging. It's stressful. It makes them not feel good about everything that's on their computer. And every time they collect something new, whether intentionally or otherwise, it just gets piled onto the mess. And that is not a fun thing. So today I'm going to talk to you about what I call the IFO method, which is a simple 3-step approach that you can take to deal with pretty much any size of data organization project. So first of all, my name is Jeff Roberg. I am the creator of the Tidy Bytes community, which is focused on digital organization, especially people who are buried under years and years of data and they don't know how to get out of it. You can get out of it. It's just a matter of taking the right steps one at a time over long enough time, building habits, and you can get out and gain control over your digital footprint. So 3 things. Like I said, the IFO method, let me switch over here really quick. There's the right button. There it is. So the IFO method is made up of 3 steps. IFO is an acronym. You can see it right there on the screen. Stands for identify, filter, organize. And I really like the IFO method because it scales. You can apply it to a giant organization project where you figure, oh my goodness, this is going to take me 5 years to get through. Even if that's true, you can use this method and help get a feel for what's actually involved and make it not quite so intimidating. Or you can use it on something that you can finish in 5 minutes. Just take a tiny piece of, whether it's a tiny piece of a big project or it's just a separate project altogether, any size, you can take this method and objectively step back and say, all right, exactly what am I going to do? So first of all, we'll look at the identify step 1, and I will ask a question about that for you guys. If you can, whether you're watching live or you are catching this later, write in the chat, leave a comment, whatever the platform allows you to do. What is the computing device that you use most? Now that might be your smartphone, it might be a tablet, it might be a laptop, it might be a desktop. So maybe you've only got one device, in which case you might be counted among the lucky ones here. But many of us have more than one device, and I've accumulated over the last 30 years. I've got rid of quite a few anyway, but I've got probably a dozen different computing devices, phones, tablets, laptops, computers that I use in different ways for different purposes. And all of them have some kind of data on it. If you use only one, you're probably in the minority, but you are, say, at an advantage because you've got less to worry about. So step 1 here, you can see identify is about finding your data. What data do you have and where is it? And the answer to that question is going to be one of two things. It's either going to be on your own hardware somewhere, or it's going to be on somebody else's hardware by definition. And when I say somebody else's hardware, that's typically what most people would call the cloud. Someone somewhat sarcastically once said that the cloud is just somebody else's computer, which is true in a way. There's more to it than that, but fundamentally, that's accurate. So you want to know, where is your data? And that might be just the pictures you have on your phone. It might be documents on your computer. It might be your email in Gmail or Outlook or Apple Mail or whatever it is. There's going to be a set of different places where your data is stored. And you don't have to get a comprehensive list. Like I said, the IFO method scales well. You don't have to be 100% complete right at the beginning in order to be able to use it. But it's good if you have some idea of whether, say, you are a heavy user of cloud services, which ones do you use? You've got Google Photos, you've got Dropbox, you've got, OneNote or Evernote, you've got calendar systems. There's literally thousands of different cloud services that people use for different purposes. And it's good to have a handle on which ones first of all, which ones you use, and then which ones you might actually still need, because sometimes those are not the same answer. So you're going to want to make a list of things like, any phones that you have, even older ones. Sometimes we have older devices, phones, tablets, even, a laptop that we haven't touched in years that, has some data on it, and you're not really comfortable with either just tossing it out, either for security reasons, or, you don't want to get rid of it because you think maybe, or for sure that there's something on it that you want to keep. It's good to know what those things are. So try to make a list of anything that you can think of. And I'm curious if you can list, if you can type in the comments or in the chat, how many devices do you think you have? Are you one of the lucky few who has just one that you use and that's all you have to worry about? Do you have like a dozen? Do you have even more than that? I'd love to know. So that's the action for the identify step. You want to make a list of the devices that you have. Oh, wrong button. There we go. Step 2 is filter. So I'll ask you another question about filtering. Of all of the data that you are aware of, whether you are able to make a list of it or not, but you've got some knowledge of it in your head, you've got your email, you've got photos, you've got documents, whatever it is. Do you think that there are some items that you could just very easily decide to delete right away? You don't even have to think about it. You can just say, oh yeah, I know I don't need that. Delete, gone, poof. That is a really empowering thing to do, and it makes you feel good. It's encouraging. It's sometimes cathartic to be able to say, yep, this has been sitting on my hard drive for too long, or it's sitting in my email archive. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to just get rid of it. So before we do any work on actually organizing things, deciding where we might want to put them, if we want to make special categories or whatever, before you get into any of that, the filter step is all about making your life easier for that final step. So you don't ever want to spend a lot of time organizing something that you're eventually going to get rid of, unless there's some other, some immediate need, and you have to use this in an organized way right now, even though you're going to get rid of it. It's just a waste of time. So the filter step says, for what I'm looking at right now, what can I set aside so that I don't have to organize it at all? I can just say, this is gone right away. And it's like I said, it's about saving time later on. And a couple of examples of that might be some old documents that you worked on a project for that is now either completed or abandoned. It might be notes that you took in advance of an event that has long passed. It might be promotional emails. Say if you're in the boat of having way too many emails, it might be promotional emails for deals that have passed, or stores that you no longer go to, or stuff like that. Another good one is shipping confirmations. A lot of people hang on to shipping confirmation emails, and those you typically don't even need to hold on to before you get the item, because you can just toss them in your email's trash system and it'll hold on to it for 30 days for you anyway before it automatically empties. So look for things that you suspect strongly, at least, if not downright know for sure, you aren't going to need to hang on to, and then just delete them. You don't have to think about them anymore. You'll feel way better. So for an action item there, if you can, just look at the data you have, pick 5 individual things. It might be 5 emails in your promotions tab. It might be 5 photos on your phone that you've got, 1,000 of already, and nobody's going to need to see these 5. I just took 50 at the same time. I don't even care about these 5 anymore. So try to find 5 things right away that you can just look at on your phone or your computer and say, I don't need this, I'm going to delete it. And one thing to note about this step, this is another one. You don't have to get a perfect list of everything you're going to delete up front. It's very common for me, especially, to go through this process with a big chunk of data, and then later on I'll go back over the same data because it's not totally organized yet. And I've decided, no, those things that I kept last time, I don't actually need after all. They're not that important, and I'll delete them anyway. So it's something that you can do one iteration at a time. And each time you'll find that you probably decide to get rid of more. If you don't, that's okay. But for a lot of us, that happens, especially as time passes. The things that we thought were important, especially the ones that were kind of on the margin, they're not that important. They're not worth spending our limited time trying to organize. So let's see, any questions? Let's see if I can look at the right thing. There we go. All right. Okay. Not anything yet on that topic. Okay. So finally, the organize step. This is the 3rd step in the IFO method. And that is about finding a permanent home for your data. The things that you have identified, you know what they are, you know where they are. You've gone through the filter step and said, I decided to keep this, at least for now. I think I want to hold on to this. It's important to me for whatever reason. These are the things that you want to keep. And because this is intended to be a short presentation, I can't get into a ton of detail on this because there are so many different ways, many of which are perfectly good to approach this problem. Where exactly am I going to put all of my digital stuff? And I will at least highlight a couple of possibilities, but the challenge is that in addition to there being so many different ways, it depends on what your goals are for the data, what kind of data you have. Are we talking about photos or email or music? If we're talking about photos, is it because you're a professional photographer or because you like to take lots of pictures of family events? What kind of a budget do you have? What kind of a time frame do you need to get this done by? Is there anyone else who will ultimately, take possession of all of this data? Say, is this a future planning thing, or is it just something that you want to get done for yourself in the next 6 months or 5, 10 years, whatever it is? There's a lot of questions that change the approach that you might want to take. But for example, if you wanted to organize email, then what you would probably do is come up with a hopefully not too intricate, but a short list of general categories of the email that you want to keep. And there's a temptation for a lot of us, me included, to get very detailed. And I have tried that, and it doesn't, even for my brain type, which loves that kind of organization, it becomes very hard to manage. So for however you do choose to organize, it's important not to let the organizational system become too much for you to manage well. It has to serve its purpose. It has to actually help you get to the end goal of knowing where and how to find things that you want quickly without having to abstract that difficulty into, oh, excuse me. All right. Without having to abstract that into just another challenge that you have to get through. So if you've got, a giant mess of data, that's one thing. But if you manage to try to sort that into a system that takes just as long for you to maintain as it did for you to find the things in the first place, that's a problem. It's not actually saving any time for you. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of the tools that are available, especially search. And this is one with email and even files now. You don't have to do all of the extreme detailed hierarchy of, say, folders or labels in an email system. You can rely very nicely on the built-in search tools for these platforms because they're very good. So go ahead and make a few labels, say, or categories, whatever, depending on folders, email, whichever you're organizing. Make those labels, but don't go crazy. Have one for friends, one for family, one for orders, one for work, that kind of thing. But rely on search. Search is a great tool. If you're doing photos, say, you're going to want to work on first eliminating duplicates and then eliminating poor photos until you're left with just the ones that are truly memorable. Let's see. If you've got a bunch of files and documents, again, you're going to want to first try to get rid of any duplicates, especially in these modern times when hard drives are inexpensive. We often will just buy an external hard drive here and there willy-nilly until we've got multiple copies of certain overlapping subsets of our data all over the place. And that doesn't really constitute a good backup. What you want is good known redundancy of just one set of data. And I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. There's more material on backups specifically, but for the organize step of the IFO method, that is obviously the last step. After you've done the identify and the filter, then the last step is just getting to decide where things belong. And one approach that I found very intriguing, and I've started to adopt more recently, much more recently than I wish I had, honestly, is called the PARA method. That's P-A-R-A. And that stands for projects, areas, resources, and archives. And this is something that was created and promoted at this point, probably for a decade or so, by a guy named Tiago Forte over at Forte Labs. And he's done a lot of research and development on this. Basically, no matter what you are organizing, you can fit it into one of those four categories. And that seems surprising that you could actually accomplish that, to boil everything down that much. But it's true. Sometimes you have to step back and reconsider how you use some of this data, but it actually can fit into one of those four areas: projects, areas, which have to do with areas of responsibility. I should clarify that. Projects, something you're working on right now. Areas, something that is not a fixed, end goal, is just something that you are responsible for on an ongoing basis. Resources, those are things like reference materials or just things that you would go back to use to support either projects or areas. And then archives. Archives are just projects, areas, or resources that are no longer in active use, so you don't need them anymore. And if you're interested in that, I will include a link in the video description here. It's really quite compelling. So to recap, the IFO method: 3 steps: identify, where is it? What is it? Is it on my own hard drive? Is it on my smartphone? Is it on laptop, whatever? Or is it on a cloud service somewhere? And which cloud service? I filter. Do I really need this right now, or can I get rid of it before I have to spend any time organizing? And then finally, organize. So I will pull that slide up one more time. And like I said, this method works whether you've got a tiny project to do or a giant data organization project that encompasses 3 decades, which is where yours truly started. And I found this to be extremely helpful in keeping me grounded so that I don't get lost in the magnitude of what can feel very intimidating at times, literal millions of files to go through. All right, so if this is interesting to you, if you find it compelling or intriguing, then I strongly invite you to come over to Tidy Bytes. That's TIDYBYTES, tidybytes.com, and you can hop on a simple weekly email newsletter that I send out. There are a number of articles online that talk about the IFO method and in more detail on some of the individual steps. We've got specific things concerning email management and photo management. And I am currently building a video course that will get into all of these things and much more, including topics specific to email, photo management, notes and schedules and task management and archiving, backups, security, all kinds of things that will help you feel more in control and on top of your digital footprint. So I would love to see you on the email list. I would love to see you in the video course when it's ready. Right now, there's only a wait list, but by all means, please jump on it. And in any case, I am glad to see you here and glad that you took the time to join me for this overview of the IFO method. So once again, I'm Jeff Roberg here at Tidy Bytes. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time.